a waterfront reimagined.
This is a huge project. It's the biggest private development project in the entire city of Washington.
The wharf is bringing tremendous amount of activity to a portion of the city that was, despite being right next to downtown, was really underutilized.
The Southwest waterfront is an example of Washington thinking big and accomplishing big things.
On October 12th, 2017.
3, 2, 1.
Washington, D.C. welcomed the newest addition to its iconic skyline, the District Wharf, transforming the nearly forgotten mile-long Southwest waterfront and the city itself.
We have 26 miles of waterfront, but not one real waterfront embracing community.
Really, I think it's the fact that it's a community and that there's this variety of experiences that you move around as you move through the project that really makes it unique.
We want people to come here from everywhere. Nobody else has something like this, nobody.
George Washington had hoped that the southern edge of our city along the waterways would be the jewel in the crown for the nation's capital. It's always been in the works. Now, 200 years plus, we're seeing it happen.
This is the story of how Washington, D.C.'s smallest quadrant came to host its most extraordinary new development, and how a visionary team working hand in hand with the city and its residents is helping to write a new chapter in the district's history.
The wharf, first and foremost, is a waterfront project. It's the longest strip of waterfront of any commercial project in Washington, D.C.
It's going to have an incredible transformational effect on the district.
I expect people to look at it like a village on the water. It's not a retail center, and it's not the CBD, and it's nothing like the public's seen before.
If you look at every world-class city, what's the image of that city? You're going to see a skyline next to the water.
While the wharf's skyline won't be completely revealed until 2022, the project's all-important first phase has arrived.
What was really unique about the opportunity of building the wharf is the scale, is the ability to plan all 14 of the buildings in one time.
In the first phase alone, you have 3 hotels, 2 office buildings, 2 multifamily for rent buildings, 2 condominium buildings, 140,000 square foot music hall, 4 monumental piers that jut out into the channel. You've got rooftop entertainment spaces. It's really this extraordinary mix.
The wharf will deliver the most new public space to the district since the redesign of the National Mall in 1902.
Washington lacked these great public spaces on its waterfront, didn't feel like a waterfront city.
One of the big promises of the wharf development is also to create just fantastic public spaces.
The 12 new public squares, parks, and piers are connected by a grand waterfront promenade named Wharf Street.
The wharf itself, a beautiful 60-foot right-of-way, is the defining organizing element.
Here, the wharf brings together a cafe zone, a travel zone, and a waterside pedestrian walkway.
The wharf is planned to be alive. It's not just compositions of bricks and mortar. It's about people on Wharf Street, on the piers, and in particular where we have entertainment.
While this new vision for the waterfront is a radical departure from what was here before it, the District Wharf returns this piece of the city back to its original purpose, to be a focal point of the region's social and commercial life.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
There's something like 20 different types of uses that go into the water.
The water is magic. The water brings out the best in everybody. When you're on the water and you're on a boat and you pass another boat, what do? You wait. It's a very social experience. So the water is something we've embraced on every design aspect.
But it's always going to be about the people who come here.
The story of the Southwest waterfront begins centuries ago. The Potomac, dotted with major shipping ports, was our superhighway and commercial center all in one.
Things didn't arrive by roads or railroad so much as they did by boat.
Really, for much of the history of the United States, the waterfront was seen as a transportation corridor, the place where you located depots and industrial facilities and warehouses.
The Southwest waterfront sits at the center of the district's riverfront, stretching from Georgetown to Buzzard Point to the Navy Yard. Although historically dominated by industry, the river was always intended to be the gateway to the capital.
When L'Enfant planned the city, he anticipated that the water would be the main means of entrance into the city.
But over time, the waterfront's fortunes would change. Evolving transportation technologies eventually took their toll. First, the long bridge and the railroad diminished the commercial importance of the river. Then, the construction of the highways and the destructive path of urban renewal separated the waterfront and the Southwest neighborhood from the rest of the city.
This was a working wharf. This was the heart of the city's maritime life. And it had been over time eliminated and rolled over.
When I first came to Washington in the late 60s, that waterfront, it looked like something that belonged in a suburb somewhere. It looked totally inappropriate for a waterfront in the capital of the United States.
But through it all, the lure of the water remained, and so did the lure of the freshest fish around.
Bestseller will be the Maryland blue crabs. United States Capitol building on the female and the Washington Monument is on the male.
A lot of great fish over there. They have great fish fry over there. It's a real center of life in the district.
The fish market was one of my big draws when I came to Southwest.
And it appears to be the longest continuing operating fish market in the country.
One of the things that we wanted to make sure was going to happen is the fish market did not disappear.
As a matter of fact, I think Congress would come after you if you took away the fish market.
Former Mayor Anthony Williams was a fish market customer who understood that the waterfront was a lost opportunity to reunite the city with the iconic river that passes its shores.
Before I was elected mayor, I was CFO of the city. I was driving around the riverfront. I just said, this is the capital of the United States, the capital of the world. We got to do better with this waterfront.
For then Mayor Williams, the solution was clear.
What are the key ingredients of a strong, robust city? Strong neighborhoods, strong streets, strong downtown, and strong waterfront.
The Office of Planning set out to create a framework to re-energize the district and its connection to its rivers. The fish market might draw people to the neighborhood, but the mayor wanted them to stay, to live and work and enjoy the waterfront the way it was meant to be. To achieve these goals, the mayor's office announced a development and design competition for a reimagined Southwest waterfront.
The city was looking for a development team that was different than the norm.
Government can't do things alone. Government can facilitate, it can convene, but you've got to have good non-governmental private sector partners.
The request for proposals included a collection of demands unique to the district. To build along a powerful river, to navigate a mountain of regulatory oversight, and of course, the challenge of re-establishing this place that most had forgotten as a premier neighborhood and destination. 17 firms take their best shot at redefining the 74 acres of land and water that will become the new Southwest waterfront. In the end, the underdog takes the prize. Local condominium developer P.N. Hoffman and Partners.
I preferred Hoffman. He talked about vision.
Well, reflecting back, in the very beginning, I was the dog that caught the car.
But for the winning team, it wasn't just a matter of showing up the next day with a wrecking ball.
We knew that going in. When you have this much land, this much shoreline, and water, it's going to affect a lot of people. And so really the city only controlled 60% of the land and only about 20% of the water. A guiding principle was we had to capture the entire site.
Located just south of the mall and in the heart of an already established community, the team would need to win over everyone from Congress to existing landowners to nearby residents.
We have been very, very sensitive to the community.
A lot of what you'll see in the outcome here is really from input from neighbors.
We recognized that it really wasn't serving our purposes. It wasn't necessarily serving the purposes of the greater Washington community.
The wharf project was gaining momentum, but then,
of course, the recession hit.
in 2008, P.N. Hoffman's original partners on the project would become casualties to the financial crisis.
Everything was in free fall. I was self-funding the project for a period of time, and we had to let go of other projects, but we doubled down on this, and we kept faith in that.
After more than 2 years of going it alone, P.N. Hoffman brings on a new partner, fellow RFP finalist Madison Marquette.
We never lost sight of the project. We were always very, very interested.
Most groups that I had approached at that point in time looked at the old paradigm. They looked at, oh, well, it must be all apartments, or it must be all office, or it must be all retail. With Madison Marquette, they were willing to work with us and had a shared vision that, no, this is something exceptional. They were on board from the very beginning.
We came in with that experience, knowing very well how to deal with retail, with commercial, and with mixed use.
And the care that was taken by this partnership is very meaningful. It tells a great story about how one can work in a partnership, and two, what you can actually create when you put your mind to something in the long term.
With capital markets in turmoil, the partnership needed a strategy to attract a special kind of partner.
When we started the project, the wharf was 3.3 million square feet, with costs about $2 billion to put together. And we wanted to build at least 60% of it all at one time. In order to attract the right capital, in order to bring in the right equity and the right financing, we wanted people to see this property as if it was already built.
Found the best partner in the world, which is PSP, because they had a long-term vision, just like we do.
With a project back on firm financial footing, and with growing support from both the federal government and the local community, the team returned its attention to the site itself.
The inspiration became a city and a water plan together.
Sort of see these traits that come naturally from the context, from its location, the ability to be on the water, see the boats, see the activity of the waterfront. That connection between nature is visceral and powerful.
Groundbreaking was in April of 2014. 7 years transpired before we actually put shovel to ground.
It took 11 years to pull that project, so it's really the first 7 to 8 years where the big effort to put the right plan, to get it approved, to get the community behind it, to get the equity behind it.
Work begins on both land and water. On land, the site is cleared from Main Avenue to the Washington Channel. On the river, construction teams begin a complete overhaul of the waterfront marinas, making way for new public piers. The excavators work for almost a year, removing over 30,000 truckloads of dirt, making room for foundations and massive stormwater cisterns. For the wharf team, the journey to the bottom is arguably the most complex part of the project.
You start to excavate and you find lots of surprises that were left by Mother Nature or previous developments. Excavation here was extremely challenging, and the Metro Tunnel being the largest challenge there. We basically bridged over the tunnel, beams larger than anything I've seen in my 25 years of construction.
With the work of the bulldozers and dump trucks complete, the team throws one of their trademark celebrations.
Imagine the wonderful views that people will enjoy here and the proximity to our downtown. We are going to have the best waterfront anywhere in the world. So congratulations, everybody.
It may have been time to celebrate, but the Hoffman-Madison team hadn't promised holes in the ground. They had promised apartments, restaurants, hotel rooms, marinas, and office space. And the date for the grand opening was set.
The time clock really is something that we started at the very beginning of the job. And you know, we haven't moved the finish date. It's October 12th of 2017.
Through the spring and the heat of the summer of 2016, concrete is formed. Mechanical systems are shaped. and tens of thousands of daily commuters observe the contours of the wharf slowly coming into view. From its beginnings, the Southwest waterfront has been tightly central to the region's transit network. But at the District Wharf, the team wanted to make these connections even stronger, installing 4 new Capital bike share stations, establishing a free neighborhood shuttle bus, and designing a regional water taxi system linking the District, Maryland, and Virginia.
The 20 million people that come to Washington, D.C. will be drawn from the mall to the wharf to be able to visit 3 jurisdictions by water.
And down along the water,
3, 2, 1.
Those visitors will be treated to a new look for the historic Washington Channel.
I can't imagine what it's going to be like the first couple of nights when this pier's open for real, and just having a beautiful sunset right behind us, being able to watch the lights come on.
We've tried to really play with the lighting, and it was important to provide a background, just providing a very discreet one blue line that will light that water and give it that shimmer.
In September 2016, the Hoffman-Madison team reveals its first completed parcel. 525 Water Street features 107 new condominium units overlooking a new waterfront park named for Eleanor Holmes Norton, an early advocate for the project and the person responsible for giving the wharf its name.
I learned from my grandfather that he and his family used to come and buy fish at the wharf. The next thing I knew, this development was being called the Wharf to reflect DC's strong history.
We have places for us to sit and just hang out by our waterfront. We've never really had that before.
While new residents begin to move in on the neighborhood's quieter southern edge, just to the north, a chorus of block saws and delivery trucks speak to the scale of the transformation underway. Superstructures of 6 buildings emerge from their foundations. And on the water, the historic Capitol Yacht Club and the liveaboards of the Gangplank Marina have been relocated, making way for visual access to the water, expanded day docks, and 4 new piers.
One of the things about how cities engage with their waterways is they often forget that people use them by boat. As a pleasure boating person, you show up and park the boat for an hour, 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever it takes you to go to dinner.
And then the piers are spectacular. The pier's 50 feet wide, 450 feet long. It's a huge event space.
With a year until opening, the intersection of the District Pier and Wharf Street, known as District Square, is already the center of activity, just as it will be for years to come.
You got cranes moving overhead, and you got lulls going back and forth. You got hoists, material hoists going up and down the buildings. If I could pipe this into my bedroom, it would just like ease my mind.
District Pier is probably the most symbolic of a real city. It's open all the time. You can walk everywhere easily to and fro, and there's no barriers to any of it.
Seth Hurwitz's Anthem was one of the first tenants to sign onto the project, emblematic of the team's mission to give the arts a privileged place at the wharf.
You know, I heard about this venue that was being built down here, but before we knew it, we were working on a lease, working on a venue.
We were really fortunate again to have Anthem and Seth Hurwitz come forward as an early adopter, as really an anchor of what we did here.
Second, we focused on the venues that will create nightlife.
Music is social. Music emotionally connects people, and it's sharing. And that was something that we felt would be catalytic to all the other things we could do here.
All across the wharf, music fills the public squares.
When I was a child, I heard them coming from my sister's room.
I would call it a festival type of environment.
I think this is going to become a live community.
These are restaurants that have an entertainment element. We have an Irish pub. We've got a coffee house that does music.
Pearl Street is spontaneous.
Break it down, y'all. Yeah.
while the venues on Pearl Street were built on a more intimate scale. Seth Hurwitz challenged his design team to imagine a space that would be a favorite for headlining musicians and concertgoers alike.
We want any act that's touring to say, well, we want to play the anthem. Of course we want to play the anthem, obviously.
But the team would need to fit the anthem into the larger development. Doing so would require some of the most creative design work on the entire property.
This is the channel. This is probably the most complicated building we have on the project site. There's actually a slice through the middle of the building. The slice lines up with L'Enfant Promenade, which goes back to the Smithsonian Castle.
The anthem and the channel are built such that the theater is fully isolated from the apartments.
You're going to have a rock concert going on inside an apartment building, and you want people to be able to get some sleep.
Through the winter of 2017, workers continue to close in the Wharf's buildings and begin detailing the interior spaces. But beneath what will become the country's first Hilton Canopy Hotel, Jamie Leeds is getting an early look at the space that will become Hank's Oyster Bar.
This is the beginning of the process. This is a cold, dark shell. The whole front is going to be all windows, the kind of windows that slide open. We want to create an indoor-outdoor feeling. You'll be able to sit here and basically feel like you're on the water.
We sought out best-in-class chefs and chef-operated restaurants, and not to copy what they've already done, to do something brand new, to give them a license to explore a bit, but to use what they know best.
I think it will create new destination for people, not only from outside Washington, D.C., but also for Washingtonians to discover the whole part of where the wharf is being developed.
A lot of people didn't realize that in the background there was a core group of us working on selecting the architects and beginning the designs for phase 2. The second phase is 1.5 million square feet. It's every bit as interesting as the first phase of the project.
It will feel seamless for the person who's going to be walking on the promenade. It will just seem like it's getting a little bit quieter with different types of activities for the people who are already here.
District Square, and by extension, District Pier, will be the wharf's central hub, where people arrive, gather, and celebrate.
What I feel will surprise people when they come here, when we open the project, is going to be the variety of great experiences all in one place, all at the same time.
In Sutton Square, the buildings have topped out and the facades have been installed.
I think probably some of the more special places are the smaller, unexpected ones in the project. My favorite space is Sutton Square.
The Intercontinental Hotel and the VO condominiums each open onto this quiet corner of the wharf, the space framed by the brick, glass, stone, and steel which surround it.
Well, less than 2 months to go, we are feeling a full range of emotions. I would say they span from excitement to anxious.
While the final sculpted planks are fastened to Recreation Pier, a series of swings are nearly complete.
In the few weeks leading up to opening day, it was full on. It was almost 24/7.
In the final days leading up to the grand opening, all around the wharf, the finishing touches are being laid into place, tested, and retested. October 12th, 2017. As promised, the security team gives the all clear and visitors begin arriving at the wharf by land and water. After 11 years of preparation, the wharf team opens its doors and officially welcomes the public.
This is transformative not only of this neighborhood, but of our city.
Our city is realizing more than ever that we are a city on the water, and that is a great, great thing.
On opening weekend, tens of thousands of visitors from across the region are introduced to the wharf for the first time.
It's amazing.
Good outdoor space.
Yeah.
I love the outdoor space.
Awesome.
It's like I'm in a different city. It's like I'm somewhere else. With the water, I feel like I'm in Italy.
We love all the hidden places, you know. It's really fun.
I remember what it looked like before, and this is just amazing to see everybody out here having a good time.
I think this bodes well for DC.
It's amazing just to see people in the project after so many years of seeing it on plans and in the model.
My dad used to talk to all of us about the power of the vision. The Hoffman-Madison Waterfront team took that vision and brought it to this place today.
This is our waterfront, our destination, and we couldn't be more proud.
From District Square to Recreation Pier, it's a time to gather and celebrate. And it's a time to take in the breathtaking waterside views of the new Washington, D.C. at the Reimagined Wharf.